So it's my pleasure to having you here for this panel. It's the only panel in English, and it's the last panel of the day after 2 days before the award in the evening. And what we're trying to achieve with this panel is we heard the last 2 days like how important digitization is, what it takes for a city, what challenges each city is facing, and we know that for Vienna or any other city, it's crucial to solve those problems together. And that's why I'm really happy to have like 2 international guests here. Leora Schechter from Tel Aviv and Benjamin Seibel from Berlin. Later on, we will have a live stream with Ike von Ernem from Amsterdam. He's currently in Turin. So that's also the setting of this panel. We are trying to do something here which might break. That's part of digitalization. But the main goal is to work internationally together and figure out who is making what great ideas in what area, what you can learn from other cities, where are synergies, and where we fail and what has to be done in the future to have like this grand achievement for making the city a better place to live for people. And also in the long term, we heard the other day how important climate change is now. And I will start now with the video from Francesca Bria, who couldn't make it because she has their own conference today in Turin. And then we go around through what everybody's doing. And we'll roll here with.
Hello, Vienna. Hello, Ulrike. I'm very sorry I can't be there with you, but I'm very happy that Vienna has joined the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights and is pushing forward this progressive progress of putting technology and data at the service of citizens. I'm now working for the United Nations as Senior Advisor on Digital Cities and Digital Rights, and it is in my new role that I'm going to push forward the agenda to put fundamental rights of citizens and their digital sovereignty at the very center of the way we build technology policy and the digital agenda of our cities, so that we can make sure that we regain democratic control over the critical digital technologies and data. Data can become a public good owned by the citizens, as we've done in Barcelona with projects like Decode and many other projects, where citizens are the ones that decide what data they want to keep private, what data they want to share, with whom and on what terms, and then open up this data so that startups, innovators, cooperative, data journalists, and citizens themselves can help us to produce data-driven and artificial intelligence-driven services to improve mobility, education, healthcare, and to create a more participatory democracy where citizens can work with us to shape better policies. I think we are at a point where Barcelona and Vienna, working together with many other cities, can really show that integrating collective intelligence of citizens into the decision-making process can make our cities better. Because we are all working together to make sure that the digital revolution is not a privilege for a few, but is a right for the many. And it will bring more better cities and a better life to our citizens. So very happy that Vienna is leading the way, and very happy that Vienna will continue to be part of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights. Have a great conference.
That's the first thing. It's live, so it's better. So this round is like, to give you some feedback of the setup of this round, so we have different sizes of cities. Tel Aviv, for example, 500,000 people living there, all the way up to Barcelona with around 5 million. Vienna is in the middle with 2. Berlin is almost like the double with 3.8, almost 4, and then Amsterdam is exactly the half of Vienna. So with the digitization, also like smaller cities have done like the problem of like how to deal with digitization, and part of the internationalization should be that also like small communities in smaller cities with less than 50,000 people are also benefiting from the technology. And first of all, I would start giving the setup and also pointing out it's 4 different cities, and I think it's 4 different cultural setups. For example, what I learned from Tel Aviv, they're really thinking around and are making, asking always the question, why something, and even if stated something is something, they're as curious to ask it again, which I think is like one of the core issues why the startup scene is booming there, because they're asking questions again and again, and they're just curious, and I admire that they're sticking to that. And the other thing is like Germany, I mean, it's the powerhouse of Europe. It has the branding that it's less asking question why, it's more like we make a grand plan, and once we have a grand plan, we're rolling it out, and once the Germans are rolling out great plans, it works perfectly. It's just like sometimes when it doesn't work on that level, then they're asking not why, what we have to do next, but they're asking why the plan failed. And so we have Benjamin Seibel from the City Lab. There's like, after the Verschwörhaus, the second really public open space in Germany, which is, from my experience, I was living there for 7 years, highly unusual for Germans. So it's like a completely open house with actually no contracts, which, if you remember Schäuble, a contract is a Schäuble, is completely the opposite. Then we have the Viennese charm of like doing things, which is more like coming, let's say, from Catholic background. We say in German, schauen wir mal, let's see how it works out. But it always gives like advantages with this easiness, because it's, you do something which other people are waiting it to be done. And then we have the Dutch. They are leagued by themselves. I mean, they're mostly the most connected European city, and in some terms, way ahead what has to be done. That goes back to the digital city, which they created 1995, which was like one of the cornerstones, and also NetArt. So that's the perspective. Different sizes, different approaches, and at the end of the day, it's Europe, so it's like heterogeneous, but we also have to find a way how to mix those things together with our friends and figuring out, is there like a third way of a model for cities compared to the American way, where it's like venture capital driven, where it's basically the market solves everything, towards the Chinese model, where basically the state solves everything. So this is like part of another setting from this panel. Is there a third way, and how do we figure it out? And what are ways to go there? We heard from Barcelona, they did a more radical approach that's been given by, they were like really hit hard by the financial crisis. And they had like a mayor who basically got the support to do something more crazy, which wouldn't be doable, let's say, in Berlin or in Vienna. So first thing would be Ulrike to ask me, how did it start in Vienna, before we go over then to our international guests?
Yeah, also from my side, a very warm welcome, especially for Leora and to Benjamin. It's a big pleasure and honor for us. And I think after discussing Viennese pilots and Viennese projects, it's time to look in other countries because it's very important for Austria and for Vienna to learn from the others. And so I'm very happy that you are here. In Vienna, we started in 2014 to develop a new ICT strategy. And after a short time, we decided we don't won't like to develop a classical ICT strategy, so we decided to make a digital agenda. And the digital agenda in Vienna is a digital agenda around all our citizens, and in the center of the digital agenda are the citizens, and in the center is participation. So we launched a crowdsourcing platform, and from that time we discussed all our projects in this crowdsourcing platform. So we discussed the digital agenda, we discussed our app strategy. Robin will mention or will talk about our apps. We discussed our IoT strategy, our AI strategy. So this crowdsourcing or participation is very important for Vienna, because with participation we get and got the view from the citizens, and I think that's very, very important. So, in the same time, when we started the digital agenda, we also started the Digital City Initiative. And the Digital City Initiative is a cooperation with the companies in Vienna and also with the research institutes. And without the Digital City, this event wouldn't be possible. So it's the heart of this event today. And we are very happy that the digital city is such an innovative ecosystem, and it's very important for Vienna, so I think. So from my point of view, the key factors in Vienna is, of course, technologies, but then it's very important to have an ecosystem, to discuss with the citizens, to discuss with the research institutes, to work with startups. Vienna is not really famous for the startups, startup culture compared to Tel Aviv, but it's also very important for us to work with startups, but also with old tech companies. What is also very important is this crowdsourcing aspect, and also to create a city network with the citizens, and that all applications, all solutions are useful for the citizens. I think this is the most important aspect from us.
Okay, thank you. Maybe go over to you, since there was already the magic word startup. And next to me is like the CEO of the city who has, I think, the highest startup incubator quote per capita in the world. And the country itself is like even ahead of Silicon Valley when it comes to VC money and also like innovation, which is mind-blowing, giving a small country like that is actually dominating a technological field way more than other countries. I mean, you had like one small country with like big exits, like the unicorn, like Waze and stuff like that, we rarely have like in Europe. I mean, the last European exit was almost like Skype. And you produce them like continuously on a roll, which is crazy. So maybe you tell us like what is your secret on how you get those startups into the administration, into the ecosystem of the city, what makes it unique, and what are your challenges in that, and where you think, for example, you can show other cities to lead the way, what you changed in that. I think it was procurement, and the other thing is like what you would need from other cities to move into there. And if you want, I don't know if you want to do slides or not, or...
I will start without slides, and then we'll go into them. First of all, we are blessed because we have that innovation force in the city of Tel Aviv and in Israel. My mayor says that we didn't become smart. We are smart because our residents are smart, and that's because of the culture. You spoke about the culture. In Israel, we do not take anything for granted. We have to think if that is the right thing or what's the right and the easiest way to do everything. And with having that kind of culture, it created a lot of startups, a lot of innovative ideas, and Tel Aviv right now has the highest rate of startup per capita. And us in the world. And us as a municipality, we looked at that innovation force and we said, we need to collaborate with that innovation ecosystem. We need to do something. They can help us in make the city of Tel Aviv better. So we created a framework of how to work with startup. We have startup committee that meets with startup every month, and we provide for them a lot of services like reduction in taxes, like exposure of data bases in the municipality, or the ability to talk to one of the experts in the municipality, or even try their product. So we have a culture of meeting and helping startups, and they, in return, are helping us in really great ideas. Recently, in the beginning of this year, we created a beta site for Smart City with collaboration of Tel Aviv University. We published the most hard challenges that we have in the city, the one that it's not trivial to tackle. And we already chosen 10 startups that are inside our beta site and are trying to solve the biggest challenges that we have. For instance, we'll talk about how we operate the city very efficiently, but one of the most powerful tools are cameras, because cameras are like the supervisor eye that can see everything that is happening outside. It can see if there is garbage on the street, it can see if someone is parking illegally, and so on and so on. And one of the biggest challenges is how, with the help of AI, with analytics, we can detect from the stream of the camera the operational event, know first, and act as fast as we can. So, to conclude, the startups are really the main or very strong force that we rely on, and they help us do better.
That's good. A quick question. You come back later then to cameras. I think you will show us some thing, which brings then back the one question which is haunting in Europe is like how you deal with personal data. You have like Germany, which has really, in my head, had strong data protection, to like Finland, who are basically like don't even know how to spell data protection on one level. And you have a city system which uses personal data to basically help the citizen in Tel Aviv. I think it goes even like to ticketing down, which I think is, I haven't seen it on that level, like nowhere close to any other European city.
I will happy to elaborate, and I'll use my slides. So, in this rainy day in Vienna, I can show you some sun. So, I will skip the beginning, because the beginning is about digitalization. And by now we have digitalized about 90% of all the city service. And that's really a crucial step in doing smart city, but it's not really the important one. After we did that, we wanted to do something more than that. And we wanted to invent new services, not only use the traditional ones that the municipality usually is doing. And to do that, we understood that we have to move to a personalized service, to adjust the service to each one of our residents. And to do that, we needed just a little bit of information about each one of the residents. You said privacy, we begin here. Yeah. And when the resident register to our residents club, which we call digital, they specify a little bit about their interest, hobby, their ages, if they are married, and so on and so on. And after having that information about each one of the residents, we are able to give personal service from the municipality to each one of the Tel Avivian residents. And what we are doing is proactive giving personal information in a push mode. We are arranging a lot of events, I will demonstrate in a second, free ones for the residents of the city, and we are giving the e-services to the right person at the right time, at the right date, in a push mode. And just to a little bit of demonstration, let's say that you have a small child, and we have an activity for kids in the community center nearby. Then the municipality of Tel Aviv will proactively send you an SMS and invite you to come to the story reading or show and so. So the municipality is giving the parent an option what to do in the afternoon with the children. That's a new service that you do not expect from them for your municipality. Another example is that we did a joint venture with all the theaters in the city. And if one of the shows is not sold fully, then we are taking all the tickets and we proactively offering them to the people that said in the beginning that they like culture. But it has to be the best offering in the city, so it has to be 50% discount or something like that. The best offering in the city comes from the municipality. So by having ideas like that come proactively, that really fits you, you really start thinking different about your municipality. And we are arranging a lot of free events, like yoga that we have just on the rooftop of the municipality every Friday, free of charge. Or we are developing apps, like this one is the ability to rent chairs and parasol on the beaches of Tel Aviv. But because you're residents of Tel Aviv, then you get a special discount. The prices that you see here are for me, because I'm not a resident. If you were a resident, it will be half the price. So the municipality of Tel Aviv is trying to reduce the cost of living in the city and help their residents, because the cost of living in Israel is very, very high. You would ask if that's successful, because there's a factor that you have to pass, because you are giving your details to the municipality. So we started like you about 5 years ago, and by now we have 220,000 people that register. The digital is relevant only for the adults. So we have really about 70% of the city population that we can communicate through that tool. So you can see the success of the idea of giving personal service. And by having that, we expanded and we realized that we have communities inside those masses of digital members. So we have the young parents with very small children, which is a very crucial time in life, because you're alone. Usually you do not know what to do with the child, you're close at home. So what we are doing in the municipality is a lot of workshops, free workshops, that teach you how to grow your children, how to feed them, and so on and so on. This is, of course, a real example. And we organize a lot of events, free one, that the parent and the child can go together. It can be strolling in the city, guided tours, it can be dancing with the babies, a lot of ideas. You cannot imagine all of them, but there are about 600 different events that goes each month all around the city for that community. And just to conclude, it's not only about giving a better services for the residents. We want to have really a relationship, like Ulrich said in the beginning. We want to engage the residents, to be active in what is happening in the municipality. So again, we have a lot of public participation events in decision-making about, for example, how to renovate your own neighborhood. What do you want or need in your neighborhood that does not work good enough, or you need something more? And of course, another app that we developed that you can report hazard that you see in the street. You also get feedback. You can see if the hazard has been dealt with. And the idea is to not have only one side of relationship, but to make the residents partners in running the municipality.
Thank you so much. There's one question, I think, what you, or at least when I did the research from Tel Aviv briefly, which I found fascinating, and that's one of the topics, like whatever you want to frame it, is like, is the city as a service or the city as a platform? Are you moving also towards like bringing the city as a platform together when it comes down to payment? You open that one up?
Of course. Every payment in the municipality is digitalized. But if I may relate to something that you said before, is about privacy. Because we have data about our residents. And there is a question, do we use properly the data? For us, we use the data only to give better service inside digital. We do not move the data to any other party outside the municipality. We do not give the data to any other party in the municipality. It's only used in order to give better services to our residents. And by doing that, we actually do not need a lot of data. You just need about 20 items to know about you in order to give you right enough service.
That's good. I mean, I think everybody, half of the people working in that space in Europe know that we are blessed with the GDPR, which makes it a little bit more difficult towards that direction. I think there's a lot of possibility when it comes down maybe to new technologies in order to make sure who owns the data and shares what information. At the moment, that's more or less like only in prototyping phases. We hope that there will be something coming forward on a greater scale. And I think we're now trying to switch shortly over to Ike because he's waiting for the live stream, and then we can see how that works out. Can you hear us? Können Sie den Sound is on?
Yes, sorry, I think you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, now it's perfect. So
yes,
welcome you
no,
so much. We shortly show you the audience. That's Vienna, that's Digital Days in Vienna. Ike is currently in Turin, and he's normally the guy in Amsterdam working at the CTO office and doing especially AI stuff. And I told the audience before that Amsterdam is doing some cool things in digitalization on a city level. Maybe you just give a brief history of what you did in the past years and what your current greatest projects are and what you want to share with us.
Great. You also told the audience that Amsterdam is half the size of Vienna.
Yeah.
You were correct about that.
So you're listening in.
It's a really small town in the western part of Europe. So I, from that part, I was listening the whole time. Maybe a small overview on what we're doing in Amsterdam. At the moment, I'm touring at the Decode event. If you're finished with this event, I will share a link. It's impressive to see what kind of speakers are gathering here. I think maybe on the topics you discussed in the last 20-30 minutes, I think on one hand, Amsterdam is just as like as Tel Aviv or Vienna or other cities. I think we're all doing the same kind of efforts. We all want to, set a mindset about digital city in mind. I want to take you along on what our agenda for our digital city is. And at the moment, I wanted to try to share my screen, but somehow it just worked, but now it blocked. Can you? We hear you. Oh, sorry. Of course, this does not work at the moment. Always happens.
Now you have me on the screen. But at least it's good that we have, so you just have to bring up the slides and it should be working. Ike? I think he reloaded. Yeah. We are back.
Sorry, somehow this didn't work out. Trying again.
Now it's coming up, perfect.
Now I'm coming up, sorry. This is our digital city agenda, and I wanted to take along with what our basic principles are, because the main thing is, you can read it yourself, I'll share the links afterwards, but the main focus is a free city, an inclusive city, a creative digital city. And I'm sharing the document so you can see it later. What do we mean with having ambitions of a free city? That means that we have the policy that everyone can walk around completely anonymous in the city. So on one hand, that's completely not true because we have some safety concerns. We want to monitor the moment you enter our central station because we want to track people, like most cities. On the other hand, it's the mindset we want to create in Amsterdam on what does it mean to be a free digital city? What does it mean to not track people? We're doing that in a few perspectives, and I think the main effort for the last few years is that we made it political. So 4 or 5 years ago, it was mainly, we've got a CTO, Chief Innovation Officer, we've got a Chief Science Officer, we've got all kind of offices within our city, and it was working on an administrative level on these topics. The last few years, we changed it to a more political level, where we created a digital city agenda. Walter asked me to give you 3 examples on what we're working on. One is that we thought, okay, the capabilities of people in our city, knowing stuff about technology, it's too low. We don't have that much expertise on blockchain or any other technologies. So we created a technology roadmap. I think it's up on the screen again. We created a technology roadmap where we said, okay, if you read through a document like this, it's going way too fast on the screen probably. We want to say, okay, everyone knows the Gartner hype cycle. We know when technology is coming at us. We know how far technology is heading at us. We want to know what's the state of technology. But the main thing, and that's the graph below, are we ready as a city for a certain technology? So we can talk about blockchain all day long, but who can help us making sure that we are ready to actually do some pilots, or to make sure that all the startups in our city do have great ideas we can fill in. So this is a document I'm sharing with Walter, so you can use it as well. This is how we want to figure out how to cope with this, with these new technologies. I think that's one of the three examples I want to give you. Another one, and that's about today. Today is the event about, I think there are 3-4 events in Europe at the same time about the same topic. One in Vienna, one in Berlin, one in Turin, where I am. And it's about Decode, and the Decode project, it's about the topic you just addressed, I think, in the panel in Tel Aviv, about how can we give people control back about their own data. One hand, what does that mean in the abstract level? So we can all have principles like giving people control over their own data, or data about the public should be from the public again. So if we're talking about traffic management information, how do we know that the information from Uber is available for us as a city as well? But those are topics we're working on. An example with the Decode project, decode-project.eu, a lot of examples we're working on. And the last one, and I think that's more the activism part, and that's where Walter and I met, why I think, would I like to address all the people in Vienna? Because I think even though Vienna is twice as large as Amsterdam, you are still not big enough to challenge this alone. We certainly are not. So how do we work together? How do we get these challenges together? Because we can think about data exchanges, and it will continue to be all fun and game unless we do this together. So we worked on this Cities Coalition for Digital Rights. Francesca Bria mentioned it in the video before. Maybe that's a signal. It is something. It's not just an ID. It's a thing where over 50 cities so far joined. Vienna is one of those cities where we're trying to, okay, let's address these topics together. Because when it comes to influencing EU policies, I think the strong voice is the thing that cities have is we know this first. So the moment that we know that we're not an inclusive city, we will know first as a city. The idea that there are a lot of people who don't have access to internet or are analphabetic, so they can't read and write online, we know this first as cities. So that's why you need a coalition to address these topics. I think on the screen on the left there will appear some principles. One example, a last example, is we're working on transparency on algorithms. We are doing that in Amsterdam, but actually Helsinki is doing a greater job than us.
Thank you so much. I think when you're working on it, maybe for the audience or for other people, representatives from the city, what's interesting is you have now a new AI team in the city, in Amsterdam, if I heard correctly. And everything you're doing there, developing algorithms for improving the city will be like under open source code. So basically, every other city can then using Amsterdam AI source code to adopt to their own needs.
Yes. And I think it's about two things. So one is procurement, things we don't build ourselves, things we are buying as well. Can we open them up? That's a large project we're working on. And the other one, and that's more simple solutions we're working on. We have worked ourselves on. You can look at our GitHub, the GitHub of Amsterdam, and you can copy the code. To be honest, we didn't put all the effort yet in documentation, so always available, give us a call. We should still work on that part a bit.
It's important.
Really simple examples. Yes, thanks for the feedback on this one.
You're welcome.
We should work on that one. Um, really simple example. We've got a lot of complaints or messages from people in our city. Now people can just send a picture, image recognition, recognize what the story is about. Is it garbage or is the disturbed person? And we process that automatically. Well, those are really simple features. You can copy, we build it, and you will copy something else, and we will copy it back from your product.
Okay. Well, then thank you so much, because now you have to run. I mean, you can still sneak in on the audio if you want, and can come back in case you have time. Otherwise, we are moving forward to Berlin, if that's okay with you. And
yes, great. Thanks.
Thanks, and have a good day in Turin.
Yes, thanks. Enjoy.
So next one is Benjamin Seibel. He's the director of the City Lab in Berlin, and maybe you briefly explain what the City Lab is and what it does for innovation for the city of Berlin.
Yes, I'd love to try that briefly. Hi, my name is Benjamin. Thanks for inviting me, Walter and Ulrike. Always a pleasure to come to Vienna. I think we should cooperate much more than we already do. I'm here as the director of City Lab Berlin, which is the first publicly funded public innovation space in the city. So it's paid for by the Berlin state government with the mission to bring the various stakeholders in the city together to work on solutions that would work for the city. So we're not like a classical startup incubator, although we have these two, of course, in Berlin. But City Lab is not so much about business models. It's really about finding new ways of cooperation and also working on eye level with government, with academia, with our strong civil society, and with the startup community. Because what we realized was that Berlin has one of the strongest civil society digital scenes in the world, and at the same time government is pretty obviously lacking behind and not making use of this great asset, because there was a barrier between civil society and government, and they wouldn't trust each other. And one of the ideas of City Lab was to open a space where they could actually meet and talk with each other on eye level and get to know each other and start working together. So the idea behind City Lab was also one of inclusion, and I think that's the red line, the main topic that we've heard from all the presentations, that we are now in kind of second wave of smart cities that are not so much technocentric and also maybe not so much economically driven, but really raise political and social questions as well. And now the question is, can we design these digital cities in a way that they are actually good for the people who live there, and that the people and that all people in the city would benefit from it? And our approach was to say, okay, digital transformation changes the life of basically everybody in the city, so everybody should also have a word in how we shape this change. And we wanted to really open a space where everybody can come, and it's really that easy. So City Lab is an open space, you can just go. We have co-working facilities that are free. We have workshop spaces, event spaces, and we have an exhibition hall. And we just invite basically everybody to just come and share their ideas, and also maybe just start working with us. I don't know, Walter, have you a picture of? Yeah. Okay, so that's we have a fantastic building. It's part of the old airport in Tempelhof that is now closed down. Although the new airport hasn't opened yet, as you know, but we already closed this down, so we can do nice things with it.
Shortly, you have to explain the historic value of that area of the Tempelhof, because it's an amazing airport and then just a huge building.
It's one of the largest buildings in Europe, actually. It is defunct for more than 10 years now, because we have another airport in Tegel, and this Tempelhof airport was located. It's really right in the city center. That's also the reason, I think, why they closed it down, because it was terrible for the, for the people living there. But it's a very interesting building with a lot of history, of course, and with the old airfield now being a public park and also like a symbol for citizens' participation, because the government actually wanted to close the airfield and build like apartments and offices, and then there was a public, like a citizens' vote against it and for preserving the airfield as a public park, which it is until today. So the whole Tempelhof airfield is also like a symbol for citizens raising their voice against the government. We are trying to work together with the government here. As I said, one of the ideas is really to have an inclusive space, and the other important thing was agility. So we realized that the problem that many governments, and Berlin is no exception, that many governments have is not so much on the strategic level, but really it's on the delivery side. So in Berlin, we have all kinds of strategies, the smart city strategy, the open data strategy. I have recently learned that there are actually more than 100 strategy processes going on through all kinds of Senate and district departments that try to deal with digital change. But then you look at the outcome and you look how they deliver, and it's really not that good. So why do all that strategy when at the end nothing is coming out of it? And I think it's because strategy comes easier to governments. For people working in government, they're used to writing laws, writing strategy papers. They're not so much used to building digital products, which is a completely different skill set that has to be learned, and you have to build your own competences. And I think other cities like Tel Aviv or like Vienna are a bit further already advanced in this, because we don't have, like, for example, development capacities really at the city, at the mayor's office or wherever. Whereas if I heard like Ike talking from Amsterdam, they have an AI unit that's really for us not there yet. But we're trying to start something like this here with the City Lab by really having a very hands-on approach. So by basically saying, let's just build stuff together and figure the strategy out along the way. So we're really prototype focused. We are not only about generating ideas, but really about building stuff that works and that can be shown, which is why we also have an exhibition space where we will always demo like the latest things that happen, and that's from our network of partners, new stuff that is developed here, and that is also open for citizens, but also, for example, lots of people from politics or government would just go there and look at the things, and it's all very interactive, and you can actually feel and experience all these things, which makes it much more interesting than if it's just a strategy paper that says we should do something with AI. So here this is really AI or maybe virtual reality or maybe an open data project that you can actually experience the value. So, and lastly, also looking at the topic of international cooperation, we are really advocates of openness. Not only in the political sense, although that too, but really from the technical side. We built prototypes and they're all open source. We also try to have a good documentation, not like Amsterdam.
That's better than Amsterdam, I know it.
No, really, but for us, it's we are super happy if other cities have interest in our projects, and we try to make it as easy as possible to reuse our source code. And this is not an ideological question. It's that it's more like we really believe that by making things open, you make things better, and also you make it much easier for others to interact. For example, with the city. So if you look at a city like New York that has a GitHub repo with maybe like 50, 60 repos, it's actually for us as developers, it's easier to build an IT software for the New York government than it is for the Berlin government.
Maybe a quick question if everybody understands the GitHub repo.
Oh yeah, so it's basically
the audience, it's for those who are not understanding. So the idea behind it is you put your source code somewhere up where everybody can access it, and then also like remodify and comment it, or basically saying your documentation sucks if it's not there for Amsterdam. And that's then the beauty where you can get like this, what we are trying to achieve in general, harvest like the synergies out of it. So maybe one city is working on something like on transportation, the other city is working on medicine, the other city is like working just on AI, the other city is working on payment or personalized data. And once something is working, you use that prototype modular structure to transfer it to another place.
Yeah.
And I think this is...
And I think cities keep reinventing the wheel right now, and we have to overcome this, and overcome this also sometimes silly competition of which city is the best in digital strategy, but actually we face certain global challenges as well, and we should rather cooperate and share our forces to make certain software better. Not every city has to build its own mobility tool, its own, I don't know, watering tool. So let's try to work together to improve these, and by sharing our source code and making it open and accessible, this is an important step in that direction. Yeah, so Walter, you asked me to show a few quick prototypes that we are working on right now. Yeah, you can also show this live if it works. This is a mobility project. So the 2 or 3 prototypes that I'm going to show are basically on a much smaller scale than what you've seen before, for example, from Tel Aviv, because it's really just prototypes. So the thing is that we build these in usually, I don't know, 4 to 5 days maybe, to just play around with them, and usually we have like 8 to 10 projects like this running in parallel to see what will work and what not. So we try to skip the long planning phase. We work on very low budgets and just try to spin out these prototypes quickly, and then usually like from 10 you will have 6 or 7 that will not make it for various reasons, but then you have 2 or 3 that really keep getting interest and traction, and then we keep developing these. So this is a prototype on bike sharing, bike and scooter sharing in Berlin, which was a big also political topic in the city, and everyone was complaining like all these bikes and scooters and no one knows, and I'm sure you have similar problems here. Different companies on the market, they would not register all their bikes with the city, so actually in the municipality no one knew how many bikes were on the street, and we approached them and we're like, yeah, but you know that these providers have like data APIs that you can just use to do analytics. And to be honest, they didn't know in our traffic department, but also they kind of didn't care because they were like, we're not programmers, we're traffic planners, so go away with your data APIs. At that point we said, okay, that's exactly where we can help by building a visualization tool that would just track the bike sharing data over the day and offer also some analytic tools to district city planners. So you could, there are certain interactions here possible, so you can zoom into your district and you can see if there are enough bikes or too many. And now we're exploring this standard further. It's actually an international standard, which is why this could be especially interesting to use also for other cities. So the data standard for the bike sharing should be the same in every city. You just have to put the data from Vienna or from Tel Aviv there, and then you can use it. And this standard also allows a two-way communication. That means that district planners could also, for example, define permit zones or zones where it's not allowed to place your bike, and could transmit them directly to the provider's bikes through the same interface, which makes it really easy for planners who don't need much digital knowledge, but can just at their screen like interact with this. And yeah, this is one example where people seem to love it, but also it's not just technical work for us, but also we did a workshop, many workshops by now, with the bike providers, with politics, with people from the public administration, to just get them on the table and talk about standards and what they expect and what they can actually do, because we learned that the providers actually like the standard because they like to have a digital, easy way to communicate with governments, and governments like it as well, but they never really talk to each other, so this was a nice side effect for that project. Okay, quickly, a second one that that started more like a bit of a joke, but then really won a lot of traction and is now one of our favorite projects. This is called the Internet of Trees. You can zoom out a bit. It's actually, it started when in the summer period there was, oh no, this is just a filter for the age. You can zoom out the map a bit. So you would.
No, it was not responding.
Yeah. So in the summer, we learned that the trees, the urban trees in Berlin, would not get enough water during dry periods, and the government was actually lacking the capacities to water all the trees. So citizens started to contribute by just watering the trees, like next to their home, or in front of their home. And lots of people feel like very attached to the trees, especially in the neighborhood. They don't want them to die. So we thought, wouldn't it be nice to have some easy tool to coordinate these efforts between citizens, but also with the government. So we just created this map. It just uses an open data set of all the trees in the city. So you cannot zoom out. Okay, you can scroll around a bit, or I don't know. So it's about 500,000 trees. Yeah, and it's basically, it's super easy and was built really quickly in I think like 2 days. You can just find the tree that is next to your home, and if you water it, you can mark it on the map that I have watered it, so your neighbors will see that and maybe can water then other trees. And also, like, we are now working, because this was just a very quick prototype, but then a lot of people approached us and said, we love this, you should improve it. So now we're doing more iterations where we would add social media integrations, or you can get email reminders, so your favorite tree would send you an email or a tweet saying, I didn't get water for 10 days, can you please come and water me again? And you can add, you know, gamification aspects where you can get an award if you water your tree every week. And it turned out that this small nudge was actually a big motivation for citizens, and also helpful for the government, because they could learn which parts of the city are basically covered by very engaged citizens, and other parts maybe where this didn't happen so far, so they could use their resources a bit better. Yeah, this just, as I said, just 2 examples of like these tiny prototypes where we just keep developing. They're not finished yet, they're really work in progress, and maybe our developers are working on them right now. But in the spirit of the openness that I mentioned, we try to release these things early, to communicate about them early, even if they're not perfect yet, they're not done. But we really try to get the interaction early, because we want to learn from our users, from the citizens, if that makes sense or not. And if the feedback we get is negative, then we can stop. And it doesn't hurt if you just have invested like 2 or 3 days. It doesn't hurt to just say, okay, no, we learned it was a stupid idea. We just use this, don't use this anymore. Okay, so just as a quick first impression.
So
Thanks.
for anybody who understands German bureaucracy, this is like really a groundbreaking project. Like really, and the space is like amazing, because you're doing also like small conferences on, let's say, micromobility, e-scooters. You're bringing people in from academia, NGOs, and basically melting them together with those people in the administration who wants to do something new. And I think it's like really, in Germany, I only know it from Verschwörhaus before. Yeah. That was like on a smaller scale, more agile city, but for Berlin, which is like built on sand, literally like, this is like amazing. And it brings me to, when you mentioned this project was the beauty, is like, and we heard it before from you, bringing a smart city is like when you can rely on the people, or the people are smart. This brings me back to you, Robin, when it's on the one really nice app from Vienna where it's about participation, and it's saying Sag's Wien.
Yes. First of all, I'm glad that I learned that my team isn't the only team in the world that hasn't managed to do all the documentation yet. So I think I should cooperate with Amsterdam. Yes, we've heard that the cities are facing the same or very similar challenges, and I totally agree, and it's one of my biggest topics, that cities should collaborate. We should also try new things. There's a a nice explanation or definition of craziness. Keep on doing the same things, but expecting new results. It doesn't really happen. So what we did is something that was mentioned a few times as well. Back in 2016, we created this app. And it was really a process of co-creation. What we did is we engaged the digital agenda community right from the start. We engaged them in the development process. So whenever we had a piece of software ready to be tested, not the whole app was ready, but a piece of software, we gave it to 10 volunteers. They were our alpha testers, and normally we got it back immediately, telling us that it was bullshit. So I totally agree that we get instant feedback about the quality of what we are doing, whether we realized what our citizens would expect from a good service. So within 4 months, this app was ready. What was very important that it wasn't only a co-creation process with citizens or with the 10 alpha testers, please press, but also after that, after we had this app ready with 400 beta testers. So we were very early out. We didn't try to be perfect. And we also did a lot of stakeholder management, co-creation, you name it, a lot of communication with not only these 10 citizens, but the whole of the digital agenda community, with politics, city council, districts, all the people and the organizations that would be affected by an app like this. And the app is an app where you can hand in broken traffic lights or broken roads or some kind of improvement that you would like the city administration to tackle. This, to my understanding, is absolutely crucial if we want to be successful. We need to invest a lot into collaboration, into communication, into stakeholder management, into creating things together, and thus making these services our services, not a service that the city administration has invented and just pops out on the market and says, take it or leave it. Next slide, please. Creating an app isn't so difficult. What was really a challenge was what is happening behind the app. Our processes, how the issue that's handed in via the app is handed over to the department that will take care of the issue, and then again proactively get back to the issue, to the person, telling yes, we fixed the traffic lights, or I'm sorry, we will not fix that right now. So what happens is, fully digitized, the issue is handed in, then we have a, now please help me, what's a redaction?
No, it's like a team who is handling a support case unit.
Yeah, a support unit. All issues are going via this support unit. They are doing the quality assurance. Is the city administration in charge or not? Is the issue clear? And as soon as the quality assurance is done, it's handed on to the department. As soon as the department is ready, they get back to they actually just say, yes, done. And in that, within 5 minutes, it gets back to the app. And you get a push notification telling you your issue has been dealt with. Very importantly to mention is that this support unit had to be founded. While we were doing the app, while we were recreating the processes, while we were optimizing the processes, we found out that our organizational structure wasn't fit for a service like that. So what it shows is if you take it seriously with creating digital services, you have to be prepared to find out that you as an organization, as a public administration, might find out that you're not quite fit yet. So what we did, we found a new organization, trained the people, and made them fit. Yes, we have 51,000 downloads, nearly 52,000, over 60,000. Next slide, please. 61,000 reports or issues. Next slide. And we leave this one. What happened was that the team that developed this app was also founded newly. With the traditional way of developing, with the traditional way of doing things, as you mentioned before, you also mentioned agility, we wouldn't have been able to do it within 4 months, and we wouldn't have been able to do it in iterations with 10 alpha testers, always getting back, the first version always getting back to redo it. So it was Ulrike's idea, together with the deputy city manager, Wolfgang Müller, to create this, we like to call it internal startup, and give us the freedom to develop in an agile way, also give us the freedom to maybe break it and not only make it. We were lucky up till now, we didn't break anything. We started as 3 people. In the meantime, we're 13. Interdisciplinary, of course, and yeah, in 2017, we were in the stores with the app. And in the meantime, we also launched, as you know, My Vienna, the citizens portal, which addresses all of that, what you mentioned, not only digitizing our services, but also personalizing it and engaging with the people, with the citizens. So that is what we are working on at the moment. We launched it in November last year, so a year ago, in a beta version again. We didn't hold it back until it's perfect, because it's not perfect yet either, a year later. Last sentence, I once was asked whether we will be finished by, I think it was October this year. And I said, I'm sorry to say we won't be finished in 10 years' time. So you have to be patient.
There's one question, because the number behind that, what's the response rate? Because that's for me always like when I look at that number, I know like a lot of cities have like something like where you can put in requesting something being fixed, but you don't hear that much back. So what's the response rate you have on like dealt cases?
I can give you a few numbers. We have about 99% of all issues finished at any given time. We have a first response time of within 1 day, unless the issue was handed in, let's say, on Friday, 6 p.m.
And that's not an out response, just saying, hello, we got your email.
That's what I mean. No. You get this as well immediately, just to make sure that it worked technically.
Yeah.
But within a quarter of an hour up to 2 hours, you get the response that your issue has been handed on to the department in charge. We have also good response from our users. We have a 4.7 rating in the iOS store, which is better than Twitter, which we like, but we don't have as many ratings, but the better one. No, but seriously, it was important to us whether the app as such and also the service as such gets a positive resonance.
I think it's like to understand that what that means actually going through that process, and not only cities are like struggling with that. I mean, Deutsche Bahn has the same issue. The bigger you get, and that hand A knows what hand B is doing, and you actually like have a version control of the information flow from one side to the other one, and getting things actually really done and delivered back to the customer or to the citizen. This is like, I don't know any other thing how great it works for like complaint management towards a city in Europe. And I think also this is part of the reasons you were recently in Sarajevo.
Yeah. With also adding to what you said before, we managed with Sachs-Wien to create corporations, because when I got the Auftrag, the order, exactly. Yeah, when I got the order to create this app, I would have rather found an app somewhere good enough for Vienna and just take it on and customize it to our CI and our map. But I couldn't find it. I can tell you why. So we decided to do it ourselves. But on the other hand, we then offered or informed that we are more than willing to share our app. So first of all, we found 2 Corinthian cities, Villach and Klagenfurt, who are operating Sachs-Wien. Of course, it doesn't. It's not its name in Klagenfurt and Villach. And we also could go internationally with Sarajevo. Just recently in September, we signed the cooperation contract with Sarajevo, which to me is very important, because going the way of corporations, going the way of sharing code, going the way of one city developing some kind of service and other cities using it, is an investment up front. So if you look at your own city, you would probably, the first reaction would probably be, yes, but I don't have any resources for something like that. I don't want to develop and then manage the corporation and invest my resources so that other cities can use my code. On the other hand, if we would manage to get it on track, it would probably mean that in the future, we only have to develop 50% of what we are developing at the moment, and we could consume from other cities. So we decided to go this way of investing up front and saying, okay, we have Sachs-Wien. Doesn't any other community public administration want it in their public administration? So I'm happy that we managed to go international.
Thank you so much. And then remark, use Slido if you want to give us feedback, because I think we're like already over time at what we promised, so the audience can have some questions or feedback. We'll check it out. Also, there should be a mic for the room, so just raise your hand if you have like any questions, statement, remarks, because otherwise it would go through the quickly the Slido stuff. So the one question was like, where as a citizen can I discuss with the platform of Vienna or the city of Vienna? I think it's participation.wien.gv. I don't know who raised that question. Since we don't have a live stream, the person should be in the room or was in the room.
It's partizipation.gv.at.
The other question was like...
and there is now a discussion about digital health, and we would like to invite you to give us your ideas and comments about this very important topic.
Yeah.
Maybe also to add, all the services that we deploy have the possibility of giving direct feedback. So you can also, if you, for example, use Mein Wien, there's a feedback possibility. You can also communicate about this specific service.
Then another question addresses Tel Aviv. What happens with data in Tel Aviv? I don't know if the person is in the room or wants to specify more.
I have my own.
Yeah.
In Tel Aviv, first we have open data, and we expose and share all the data that we have with the residents, with the developers, with the researchers. Of course, all the data that is in our open data is not personalized. We do not extract any personal data of any one of the residents, but there is usually enough data, even online data, about transportation, for instance, which is very useful, that people can use. But after having open data about 3 or 4 years, we looked at the amount of people that are really using it. And we saw that the level of usage is very low because we asked the startups, why is that? Why aren't you looking at the data? And we understood that their use case is usually about personalized data. For instance, if it's a startup that wants to do all the payment of the house, the electricity, the housing taxes, and so on and so on. Not all of it is owned by the municipality, but some of the payment are to the municipality. And to implement that kind of scenario, you need the personal data of the person. So what we are doing right now is moving from open data to open architecture. And open architecture will allow the startups to get your specific data. But to do that, for us to let him have your data, you as a person has to allow us and sign like a contract that allows the startup to get your personalized data. And we have to adjust all of our systems and our security borders in order to make it happen, in order to protect the other data sets that we have in the municipality. It's very hard thing to do. We already defined the architecture, how it's going to be done. We already defined the contract that has to be signed, and we are now implementing the system in order to make it happen. And when we'll have open data, we'll be really able to cooperate with startups on the API level that is really useful, not only unpersonalized data. And that's a big challenge for us.
Thank you. I think we have one question over there.
Yeah. Good evening. I've got another question to Mrs. Schechter. Could you elaborate a bit on the marketing instruments or publicity you use to achieve this high rate of residents using the service? And second question, how many did drop out after a certain period of time because they didn't see the use case or the benefits, or were maybe afraid of what kind of data will be used after that?
Mm-hmm. I think the people that are afraid about their own privacy do not join at the first place. What we are publicizing is really events that should be relevant to your persona. And to really understand the behavior of the people, like you try to mention, we developed a BI that shows that we publish that kind of event, and we are looking at the BI and seeing how many people have left the club because of that particular event. So every thing that we published is being analyzed to see the effectiveness of the event and the publicity, and we adjust all the time the kind of data that we send to the residents. If we spoke about culture in the beginning, I think that the Israeli culture has two characteristics. One, we are not afraid to fail. It's okay to fail. We are doing something. If some of the people drop out, it's okay. We just have to understand the reason and correct it. And we are always correcting our ways in order to make it successful. So we are deploying very, very fast and correcting along the way. That's why you saw that we already have, after 5 years, 70% of the residents engaged in the tool, and we are asking about their satisfaction, and you can see how high is the satisfaction level of the residents. And the second, I think, characteristic is that we are not afraid to expose our data, especially if we are seeing the value. If I can get a value from giving the municipality some items of data about myself, it's okay. If I don't see the value, then of course I will not tell my friends and they will not join. And you see the process that we have gone through. It's not like in the first day everyone joined. After having a success, one successful person, he tells his neighbor and so on and so on. And after 5 years, we have an incline like that. So you must understand that it's a process. The issue of privacy, it's an issue in some countries more than others, but in all countries. And it's a process. You have to show the residents that you're doing good for him and really trying to do your best and not only to collect taxes and so on.
Are there any other questions from the audience? We can go back to a slide. I think there was one more. That was a compliment to all the cities.
Thank you very much. Can you read it again?
You want to compete with Vienna as your city, it's not as good digital as Vienna. I don't know who said it. I take this as a compliment for all the cities who are trying to do actually in making a culture where you can try things out in order to improve it and not making like these incremental steps which you're normally being dragged on if you're working for a city because you have the high pressure that nobody allows you any fail. I think that's also a problem of the citizen who bash everybody who tries out something, although in goodwill, if it's not 100% perfect. If you would do the same thing in other areas, then you probably wouldn't have like any progress. I think that needs some understanding for both sides. There was some talking about cameras in Tel Aviv, mentioning monitoring illegal or dangerous parking. Are these pictures being used to charge the driver?
First of all, there is a big issue about privacy when you're talking about cameras. So you have to carefully use your use cases. In some cases, we use the cameras in order to make fees about parking. It's usually in areas that there is a big disturb to the movement. Only in this area we put cameras in order to change the behaviors of the driver. That's the main purpose. And in the places that we put cameras for that purposes, you can see that after a few months, no one parks there. So it's a way of teaching the residents how to behave in order to give service to the others. But you have to have algorithms of reducing the availability of the video in order not to be able to recognize any one of the persons in the car or walking in the street and so on. So we are doing that. Of course, we are erasing any parts of the video that does not include violations. It's only cut by small pieces and only the one with the violation is kept for further use. And those parts are being blurred in that case that no person can be recognized. So when we design a system, it's designed by privacy. So we design the whole system in order to keep the privacy of the residents. It's even more important than achieving your goal. So having a smart city is not an issue that is likely taken. And we take privacy very important.
I think, Ben, you can maybe say something about your camera experience you're doing right now, since I know there's something up in the air in Berlin.
Yeah, and probably it's even trickier in Germany, but there's just another project. I think I had a slide in there if you can find it, but if not, oh yeah, there it is. That was fast. Yeah, so it's what we're trying is to use machine learning for real-time recognition of vehicles, which already works quite well for certain use cases. And the great thing about this is that you actually do not have to save any data because the video feed is analyzed in real time. And this doesn't work yet for parking violations, but the simplest use case is just counting vehicles. And we learned that actually this use case is already super useful and can save lots of money for the city, because a camera setup with this, like a high-resolution camera and a small computer, is like costs €1,000 maybe. It can also differentiate. It can see vehicles, buses, bikes, and so on, and can count them separately. And when we tried that out and learned it works actually quite well, and it's super privacy friendly, then we learned that the city would actually count cars with a pen and a paper. So they would, every time they would send someone out on the street and pay him by the hour to make, to cross out how many cars are there. And this system, so it's very cheap and works almost, at least during the day, almost as good as humans. And so we were just happy to learn that you can use technology like AI, that is sometimes also looked at as something dangerous, to make a pretty straightforward case for a privacy-friendly, automated vehicle counting system that could probably be improved quite easily to include stuff like parking violations or other dangerous traffic violations. It's then just a matter of tuning the algorithm to recognize other situations.
We have 4 minutes left, so one last quick question for Tel Aviv is like how you manage to motivate the elderly generation to participate and overcome the prejudge against future technologies.
We thought it will be a very big challenge, because you would expect that the elderly does not use digital tool. But we found out, gladly found out, that the population that use most digital are the elderly. The highest rate of people that use digital are the elderly in the city from the age of 60 and up. And the highest people that gave us the highest vote about their satisfaction of digital was the elderly. And it was a very, very nice thing to find out, because we didn't expect that. And when we try to understand why it's like that, we understand that every one of the elderly, almost everyone, has a smartphone, because he has to communicate with the children and the grandchildren and so on. And if you have a tool which is very easy to use, very intuitive, you invest in the UI, they will use it. They are using WhatsApp because they communicate with the families, they are calling to them by phone. And if you design your application that way that they can use it, I think you will be surprised how many elderly use digital. And of course, we are getting elderly in a year or two, and I hope we will increase the rate of people that use digital tools.
In Vienna, there's now a campaign, which I have to say it in German because it sounds funny, is erwischt jeden Alter, which means like everybody's getting older. And I actually like the language because we learned a lot from your culture in the language, even in German, which sometimes really cracks me up. On this note, we are like almost completely at the end. I thank you so much for the international guests. It was my pleasure having you here. And I hope this discussion and collaboration continues, and it's a call to action for trying to figure out how cities can work together. A quick remark in the audience is Bernhard Grabiner. He had today a workshop on local sound public management, which is exactly doing that, what we're trying to discuss here on a level on which is called the Danube region, which is like 14 countries and a fifth of the European population, which is quite big if you think in terms of this. So if you have any questions regarding collaboration in the Danube region, please ask Bernhard. And otherwise, thank you so much for the patience. It was a long day, and the last hint was like at 5 o'clock. There's then the Hedy Lamarr Awards presentation. It will be a blast, and it's like great that fostering or engaging women in technology. And I hope to see you, I guess, somewhere around next year, and have a great evening. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you.